Welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Here's your host, the Bitcoin Boomer himself, Gary Leland.
And welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I'm your host, Gary Leland, the Bitcoin Boomer. That's right, I'm a boomer, likes Bitcoin, so of course I'm going to be the Bitcoin Boomer. And just to make sure you understand, right up front, this show is for people that want to find out about Bitcoin. It's not just for Bitcoin boomers. I happen to be the Bitcoin Boomer. So that's why it is. So don't confuse the two. Now in this show, what we do is every week we try to bring you great guests from the world of Bitcoin. Most of them are friends of mine, I have to admit, but they're people who have knowledge that can help you learn about Bitcoin. This show is perfect for anyone who doesn't know about Bitcoin and they're just trying to gain knowledge. So when the Bitcoin bull run comes, they are already knowledgeable about it and they decide to get in. They don't have to start from scratch learning. I just want to tell you an interesting thing I did this week. I went to Corsicana, Texas. Now you may not be familiar with Corsicana, Texas, but it's south of Dallas, about an hour south of Dallas. And Riot, a company called Riot, is building the world's largest Bitcoin mining facility there. Oh my gosh, this thing is gigantic. It was amazing. I had a tour of the plant, met some other people there. We had a tour of the plant. It was simply amazing. So Texas is Bitcoin friendly. We have the largest Bitcoin mining facility in the world being built. We already have the largest Bitcoin mining facility in North America in Texas. So Texas is Bitcoin friendly. So go to Riot. I recommend you go to riot.com and check out their videos and photos of the new plant. It is just amazing how big this plant is. I just couldn't believe how big it is. Now, on today's show, we're going to have Neil Jacobs. Neil Jacobs is a friend of mine, of course. Most people are on this show. But he's with FOMO21 and with Swan.com, which are both great sites. Swan is a sponsor of my conference, BitBlock our platinum sponsor this year. And FOMO21 is, as you will find out, is a great place to find Bitcoin-themed t-shirts, caps, and things like that. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin with Neil, and then we're going to talk about Bitcoin some more, and then we're going to talk about Bitcoin a little bit more, because that's all we talk about in the show is Bitcoin. So if you're not interested in Bitcoin or don't want to learn about Bitcoin, this might not be the show for you. But if you want to learn about Bitcoin or know anything about it, this is your show. We'll be right back with Neil Jacobs after this word from our sponsor. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the show. I appreciate you joining us today. We're going to have a great show today. We have a good friend of mine, Neil Jacobs, on from FOMO21. We have Stephanie, our great producer here. Stephanie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Caught you off guard there?
Yeah, you did. A little bit. Just a little bit. But
So,
it's okay.
So anything happening in your world that we need to know about with Bitcoin?
I'm still, what's that called? Spinning the wheel on my Fold app.
Well,
getting those sats, like you say, stacking them.
Stacking those sats?
That's
well,
all I can afford right now.
If I can remember correctly, you've been stacking those sats since February.
Yes.
And whatever sats you have stacked since February are now worth 110% more, because that's about what Bitcoin's gone up since then.
Love that for me.
Yeah, so your free sats are gaining more value every day, so that's a good deal. And I assume that's why you changed the wall to green here, because you're trying to reflect a green candle?
Yes, I totally knew that reference, and I didn't learn it today.
But you did, on your own, make the wall green.
Yes.
Well,
I will take accountability for that and credit. So
subconsciously, you knew.
You're welcome.
But everybody, welcome to the show today. We're joined by, like I said, a good friend of mine, Neil Jacobs from FOMO21. Neil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Glad to be here. I love what you're doing with FOMO21. There's a lot of stuff you're doing. I want to go over that. But before we go over anything, how about give us real quick a short bio so people know who you are?
Sure. So my name's Neil Jacobs. I am the co-founder of FOMO21, which is a Bitcoin merchant apparel company. I also work for Swan, and I am the head of brand engagement. I do a lot of marketing, social media, operational stuff at Swan, and that's fairly new. Happy to be working there. And yeah, so I'm from Florida originally. Went to the University of Florida, go Gators, and then went into the fiat world as an accountant, a CPA. And for years, I knew it's not where I really wanted to be. I wanted to try to, you know, make a difference in the world, as Michael Saylor likes to say, try to make the world a better place. And I thought for a while that politics might be that for me. That turned out to be not very pleasant. And then in 2020, or 2019, I started really being public facing when it came to Bitcoin. I first discovered Bitcoin back in 2013 when a friend of mine told me he was using Bitcoin to buy some weed. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wasn't looking to buy any drugs or anything, but back then I found Coinbase because that was really the only thing that existed at the time. Bought a little bit of Bitcoin for $120 per Bitcoin. I don't still have that Bitcoin today, if any of you were curious. But then it saw it like triple in value, and I sold it because I was like, hey, I'm getting out of this. I think it ran up to 1,200 that year and then crashed back down to 200. And then I just kind of meandered until like 2015, 2016, started with the altcoin trading. I still really didn't understand Bitcoin. But then by the end of 2017, I was kind of burnt out with the whole trading game. And I never bought another altcoin again after that. And I started really learning about Bitcoin in 2019. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. And I kind of fell down the rabbit hole and just started putting myself out there. And yeah, I just kind of got captured by the Bitcoin space, the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin Twitter, and now I'm here with you now. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, that Bitcoin rabbit hole is a deep rabbit hole, but I want to go over something you stated there. Michael Saylor says, about working to change the world, basically. And Bitcoin definitely is a great way to change the world because it's going to change the world whether you want it to or not. So I believe everybody should get on the bandwagon and start getting involved. But that's one thing I always say about Bitcoiners versus crypto people is, don't get me wrong, both of them want to make money. Bitcoiners and crypto people, they both want to make money. But crypto people are like day traders. They just want to get in and make money. That's all they're worried about. They're going to get in, they're going to make the money. They're going to get in and make the money. Buy, sell, buy, sell. Where I think the majority, not all, but the majority of Bitcoiners that I meet at least ways want to make money, but they realize they have an opportunity to help change the world. And so I think a majority or a lot of Bitcoiners realize they can help change the world, where that's not the case with crypto people. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Yeah, I guess I used to be a crypto person, and I didn't really understand the big picture of like Bitcoiners and why Bitcoin only was the thing. So I look at Bitcoin as a communication tool, a way we communicate value from one person to another. And like I mentioned before, earlier in my life, I thought that politics was the way to do that. But then I kind of realized that system was so broken. I didn't know why. But then when I found Bitcoin, I'm like, wait a second. The base layer of society is money, right? It's how we communicate to each other. And until we fix that, all this other stuff is noise. So yeah, just to go back to your original point, I think people definitely come to Bitcoin. They see the number go up. It aligns that greed incentive that most people have. But when you dive more into it, you see that the problems with the fiat system are the reasons we have a lot of problems in the world. Not all the problems, but a lot of them you could tie back to the monetary incentives in the current structure.
And you're correct. The political system is broke, but so is the financial system, so is the educational system. I mean, everything's broken. It's all broken. And I think a lot of that breakage is due to the fact that the US dollar got off the gold standard back in 72 or whatever. Everything's been breaking since then, and now it's just at an ever faster rate.
Yeah, and they're all intertwined, right? The political system affects the monetary system, affects the education system. They're all intertwined. So yeah, I mean everything. I don't know if it's since 1971, since the Federal Reserve, since we came off gold in 1971, but I do know that Bitcoin offers a better alternative than what we have now. So I've decided to really direct my energy um, towards Bitcoin every day for the rest of my life until I feel like I can't contribute anymore.
No, thanks for correcting me. I couldn't remember. I never can remember that year. I was in high school. I should be able to remember that. I think I was a sophomore in high school when that happened. So, but it could be. You could be right. It could be ever since the Fed. I think talking about the Fed. I think Andrew Jackson said the greatest thing he did as a president was end the Fed. I could be wrong on that, but he said that was the best thing he ever did. But it came back. It's like a hydra. I don't know if you
Yeah.
could.
Anything that involves like money creation where no work was put in, it's really like debt. It's like credit creation is really kind of the problem with our system. And hopefully Bitcoiners can usher in a system where we don't have these kind of um, you know fractional reserve type lending and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a major problem too, that most people don't even realize what's going on with fractional reserve lending. I think if people knew, or the majority of people, if they understood the banking system, they would all revolt. They'd say this is
Yeah,
just not right.
it's so complicated. No matter how many times it's been explained to me, I still couldn't like fully explain it to someone else. And it's really funny because a lot of people who aren't into Bitcoin, they're either no coiners or pre-coiners. They're like, Bitcoin, it's just so complicated. I don't want to get into it. Do you understand how complicated the monetary system is that you live in, but you just accept it because you think it works well? Bitcoin will work a lot better for you. So it's funny.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, no one understands it. I'm the same way. I have been explained it and will watch numerous shows about it, and I still don't understand all the bits about it. But I do know one thing: I understand and know enough that it's not doing the common person any good. Now we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor with more from Neil Jacobs. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Today we're joined by Neil Jacobs from FOMO 21 and a friend of mine. Neil, welcome back to the show. First of all, for those out there that may not know, and if you don't know, it's because you don't watch the show enough, I run a conference called BitBlock Boom. This year we're in Dallas, Texas in April. Right after the eclipse, we're trying to incorporate some extra stuff to make it an eclipse event too, much less a happening. And Neil, I want to thank you for your support. I think you've been to like the last 5 out of 6 or something. I don't know how many you've been to, but it's been quite a few.
I've been to a few, and I'll be there this year. I'm really excited. Um, yeah, it's a great conference. It's one of my favorite Bitcoin conferences that I go to. I kind of look at the Bitcoin only conferences as the U.S. as like a top 3, and one of those includes BitBlock Boom. So I'm excited to be there. You really get to talk to anyone in the space that's there. They're not, there's no backstage that you're not allowed to like talk to anybody. You're really face to face. The last BitBlock Boom in August of this year, I got to meet Tur Demeester after his speech that he gave, and I never met him before. But right after the speech, he just came out and started talking to Bitcoiners, and it was a pleasure for me to meet him because I've always respected him. But there's a ton of Bitcoiners there, and everyone's always really friendly. So I would suggest that you go to BitBlock Boom if you haven't gone yet.
Well, I appreciate that. I wasn't trying to get the plug, but I'll take it. That's for sure. And that is true. I hear that all the time from people that they go, yeah, I was just standing there and I looked over there and there was Pierre Richard and Seyfedine Moose having a drink at the bar, and I went up just to stand by him and kind of like be near him, and all of a sudden they introduced themselves to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, so it is a thing. We don't have VIP passes in a special room that they can go into. I did that the first year and I said, I don't like segregating everybody. We're all VIPs if we're Bitcoiners. So that's why we do a pro pass. It just means you're buying a bigger ticket. You're not getting special treatment. Everybody's getting the same treatment. So that was the thing. Tell me a question. There's one question I do ask everybody that I want to move into now, and that's, how did you find out about Bitcoin? What was your orange pill moment that you said you found out about it early, but you didn't understand it? What made the difference? What was your orange pill moment? Not when did you find out, but your orange pill moment.
So yeah, like I said, 2013 was the first time I found out about it. I think it's American Hodl who says you need like at least 3 touch points before you really understand Bitcoin, and that was kind of me. So, heard about it in 2013, dabbled in all the, trading in 2015 through 2017, and then kind of was like, man, I'm done with this. And then, a couple years later, I just started listening to podcasts, reading books. Back when I first heard about Bitcoin in 2013, there weren't like really podcasts available like there are today. There weren't the number of books there are today. The Bitcoin Standard, I don't even think that came out until 2018, right? So, it's a lot easier today to fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole quickly than it was back in 2013. At least I'm giving myself an excuse for why I didn't understand earlier. But yeah, at the end of, I'd say, mid 2019, end of 2019, I was kind of thinking about, how to reallocate my own investments, and Bitcoin just happened to like pop back onto my radar. And I'm like, you know what? I want to just learn about Bitcoin only and why it stays around. Like it never dies. And I just had a holy, crap moment at a certain point. And yeah, like I said, I just started consuming a lot of podcasts. Bitcoin Tina was a big reason for me kind of being orange pilled. And then just all of Bitcoin Twitter really helped me. I was talking to friends about Bitcoin. I was on like a group text thread with my friends, normies, as we call them. They're not Bitcoiners. And none of them really cared about listening to me talk about Bitcoin. And at a certain point, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to try to like shove this down their throat. So I really found Twitter was like a great place to kind of share my thoughts. And then people would comment and they were interested. And I kind of just got engrossed in that part of the community. And like I said, it's just kind of taken off since then. And I'm just happy that I found these people, that I found these podcasts, these books, and then I'm here with you now. And I'm very grateful and appreciative.
Well, you're right on 2 points there. I think Hodl is right on his 3 touch points. It took me 3 touch points. It was like $100 when I first was told about it. And I was told it was like online stocks and I had no interest. Then I heard about it a few years later from someone who was given 30 something of them. And he was telling me, oh yeah, this stuff's going to go to $1 million. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Then a few years later, someone told me about it and we spent like 6 hours talking about it. He answered everything I could think of. And from that point on, I was orange pilled. And once you see it, I think Bitcoin's hard to see. It really is. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, if that makes any sense. Once you understand it, you're never going to like doubt it once you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you see it, you really can't unsee it. And plus the time I really started understanding it, there was a lot of social signaling that was happening. Paul Tudor Jones, who was famous for investing in gold, talked about Bitcoin and being the fastest horse in the race. And when I started seeing it get more public support from well-known, investors and people who are considered respected investors like a Paul Tudor Jones, I'm like, this thing isn't going away. And yeah, I guess the whole, Bitcoin is dead, but it's never really dead, just kind of eventually captures you. And it's like, why won't this thing just die? And then you fall in and you really never get out. Yeah, it's hard to get out once you fall in.
And then people will inevitably say, "Oh, you were really lucky. You got in early." And you're going, "Lucky? I saw it go from 20,000 and held on until it went to 3, and then I saw it go to 69,000 and held on to it till it went to 15." There wasn't a lot of luck involved there. I feel like I knew what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And and here I'm still riding it, and we're up 110% this year. But it's those periods of when it goes from, like I said, 20 to 3,500, I guess it was what it was, or 69,000 to 15,000. That's not luck. That's more like being educated, I would say.
Yeah, you need to have the conviction that we have. You need to have put in hundreds of hours to be able to hold through that volatility and know what you own, right? So many people don't know what they own, and they I guess we call them paper hands, right? They let go of their Bitcoin. Yeah, it takes a certain level of study and conviction. There's no luck in hodling through what's been one of the longest bear markets as we've been going through. I think maybe we're turning a corner and we're going into a bull market now. I hope the recent pump isn't a fake out, because I could use a few more positive days like we've had the last few days. But yeah, there's definitely no luck involved. People will say we're lucky, and that's fine. They could say whatever they want, but we know that it took a lot of determination and just a lot of study to get to where we are today. And I believe you believe we'll be rewarded for that.
It's like my wife. She didn't watch Bitcoin go to 20 down to 3,500, but she did start watching it when it hit about 40, and saw it go from 40 to almost 70, and then back down to 15. And she was saying, "Man, I sure wish this stuff would get back up there." And I had to tell her, I said, "Kathy, I don't blame you for having a hard time with this. This is the longest bear run there's ever been. So, and this is your first, and you're going through the longest as your first. So you have every right to be feeling that way." Because sometimes you go, I feel like we should have sold at 69. But I know so many people who sold and didn't get as much when they got back in.
Yeah. How long was it actually at 69,000 too?
Yeah.
And how do you know that's the end, right? Like, so many people predicted like 100,000, 150,000, 200,000.
And thank you for watching. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I do want to remind you, if you know anyone who's interested in Bitcoin at all, or you think may be interested, please share this show with them. We don't sell Bitcoin on this show. All we're trying to do is educate you about Bitcoin on this show. And actually, if you listen to the show enough, you're going to be able to carry on the conversation and be very educated about a subject here. So this is a great subject to be interested in, to be knowledgeable on, and to talk about, in my humble opinion. And now let's welcome Neil Jacobs back to the show. Neil, sorry we cut you off there.
That's okay, my bad.
But no, not too bad at all. But yeah, I want to go into another subject there because I can't even remember where we're at for the second. My memory's not as good at 69 as it was at 29. But another thing I want to know is, in your opinion, to Neil Jacobs, what is Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on it earlier. I see Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network, it's just a database, right? It's a tool we can use. And the best way we could use it is as a money. And money is so important for a society. Before you could really understand Bitcoin, you have to understand money. And money is a communication tool. And if we're communicating with each other, we want the strongest money that there is. And I think, Bitcoin accomplishes that better than any money that's existed in human civilization. When we look at the fiat system, right? Fiat is so distorted. We don't know how many units are out there. It's constantly printed. There's different fiat all over the world, corruption in governments. And if you have all this distortion in the money, or what they call money these days, right? Fiat, then our communication is never going to be accurate. How do I decide? How do I value something if the measuring stick is always changing? So Bitcoin provides us a system of rules, not rulers, right? As you've heard. And that's the best way to communicate, is if everyone's following the same rules. So I think Bitcoin ultimately is a way to communicate value from one person to another. And, there's obviously a lot of other great things that come with Bitcoin in terms of preserving your wealth because you don't have monetary debasement and things like that. But being able to communicate value helps a society function.
Well, those are all great points. And something I do like to point out, let me ask you a real quick question. Did you know the word fiat money before you got into Bitcoin?
Definitely not.
I didn't know that.
When I heard fiat, I thought of cars.
Yeah, for sure. My brother-in-law had one when I was a teenager. He had a little yellow Fiat Spider. And so just to help explain what he just said, if you're not familiar like Fiat, which many people are not, don't feel like you're alone. But Fiat is from the Latin word, and it means because I said so, basically. So the United States, is a Greek, okay, it's a foreign word. It means because I say so for the most part. And that's the way money is today. It's money because the U.S. government says it's money. That's it. Only because they say so. No other reason, no other backing. And so when you hear fiat money, that's the basic comment there.
There was no reason to know the term fiat because we had nothing to compare it to, right? It was just
fiat. Everything was fiat.
Right. Everything was fiat. So it's just fiat. But now we have this alternative. So we need contrasting words. And there had been a word, we just didn't need to know it up until Bitcoin. Well, maybe we needed to know it. But Bitcoin helped us learn why we needed to know it.
That's a good point also. So all of a sudden, you had, instead of just fiat, you had fiat and an alternative. As Bitcoin Tina would say, there is no alternative, but I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. but yeah, that's true. So let me ask, what do you think are the largest barriers or hurdles for people moving into Bitcoin or finding out about Bitcoin?
There's definitely less than there have been in the past. I think the biggest hurdles, there's obviously, a learning curve to understanding Bitcoin. It combines a ton of different disciplines, right? Cryptography, coding, economics, psychology, understanding money, basic finances. So it's combining a lot of different things, which can be intimidating. But you don't need to know all of them. You don't need to be an expert in all of them. You just kind of have to realize that no one's an expert. So everyone says like, don't trust, verify. Bitcoin is not necessarily, it's about trust minimization. You learn about certain things, but you're like, I want to dive deeper. And you may never be an expert cryptographer, but you'll able to be able to look at the top 5 cryptographers in the world and see like they're coming to a consensus on things. It's like, okay, those are the kind of people I could look to and feel confident that I'm getting accurate information, right? You want to look at all different people from different backgrounds kind of coming to a consensus on certain subject matters. Other barriers, we have the mainstream media and governments who don't want to see Bitcoin succeed. 1 minute you have a senator calling Bitcoin air and that it has no value, and then later on wants to ban it. So is it like air, or is it only going to be used for terrorist financing? It's ridiculous. So I'd say mainstream media FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, for anyone who doesn't know, and government FUD is definitely a hurdle to adoption. It scares a lot of people from coming in. And I guess in, certain less developed countries, just getting them the infrastructure they need. A lot of people still don't have internet access around the world. So getting them internet access, getting them tools to get connected, educating them on wallets and how to download a wallet on a phone, right? So there's education, there's FUD, there's learning curves. So there's a lot of different things. But like I said earlier, we're definitely at a better place than we were last year, 2 years, and years ago. We only get better and better, and there's only more and more learning tools available. Earlier I said I work for Swan now, and they have a ton of learning materials on Swan site. They call it the Canon, and you could go through whether you want to talk about like environment. People say Bitcoin's bad at the environment, and we have a lot of articles, kind of disputing those facts. It talks about the environment, energy, government FUD, and really explains, why you should feel confident in Bitcoin and how you could explain that to friends. So I would definitely check that out. And yeah, that's all I got there.
And one of the things I guess Swan is really known for is dollar cost averaging, or DCA, which is not a Bitcoin term. That's a term that's used in the stock market or whatever. If you want to find out more about Swan, who Neil works for, go to swan.com/Gary and check that out there. That's my affiliate account to let everybody know. But if you use that account, you'll get $10 worth of free Bitcoin, and I think I might get a couple dollars worth of Bitcoin. But Swan has been also a great supporter of BitBlock Boom, and they're our platinum sponsor this year for 2024. So,
awesome.
Did you not know that?
I did. Okay. I did from you. You kind of whispered it to me, but I didn't know publicly.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's public or not. It is now, I guess.
Now it is.
But yeah.
No. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just babbling.
I can't even remember what I was going to say now. On to you.
Well, I do have a question. Our statement I wanted to say, we were talking about people not understanding. I don't completely understand Bitcoin mining, right? But I don't know how email works either. And I don't question as to whether email is going to work. It's been around long enough that it's going to work. And that's the way a lot of things are with Bitcoin. It's been here like 12 years now. So it's proven that the system works. So you don't need to understand all these little parts of it. Some things you can just take for granted, like mining is going to work. Nodes are going to do their jobs. I don't need to know what nodes do. I don't need to know how they work. It might be interesting for some. I do understand, but that's not necessary. The main thing is to understand money, which you were getting at earlier. That's the real deal.
Yeah, definitely understanding money. I would never, discourage anyone if they want to learn more. If they're curious about mining, the tools are available. If you feel confident enough to where you're like, I don't need to know all the nitty gritty. I've talked to enough people.
That's correct, and that's a good point. We're going to go to a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Neil Jacobs. And welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show with Neil Jacobs, our special guest, my friend Neil Jacobs. Neil, thing that I do have thoughts on, but I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of ordinals and inscriptions on Bitcoins? And for those who don't know what that is, that's like NFTs. If you don't know what that is, well, I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm just curious as to your thoughts, Neil, on ordinals and inscriptions.
Yeah, so ordinals is just a protocol that was made up by someone. It doesn't actually affect anything on the base layer of Bitcoin. Now, inscriptions are just a way of putting something in a block, information, data. You've always been able to do this with Bitcoin. Now, certain upgrades to Bitcoin over the years allow this kind of way to put a lot more information. I don't really have much interest in it. I think it's a passing fad that will eventually go away or be used by a very, very, very small fringe group. For me, Bitcoin is about changing the way the world views money. And this is just kind of a distraction and noise in a bear market, because people are bored.
That's a pretty good point there. I think it'll all work itself out. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's going to work because Bitcoin fixes everything, in my opinion, and it's going to fix itself. I mean, I don't have to have an opinion one way or the other on that. Now, look, getting back to talking about you a little bit, tell me about FOMO 21.
Yeah, so FOMO 21 started a little over a year and a half ago. My partner in the business, Ryan, reached out to me on Twitter. I didn't know who he was. He DM'd me, and he said, "Hey, Neil, I've been following you on Clubhouse and Twitter for a year or so, a couple years, and I think you'd be a good partner in a Bitcoin merch and apparel business. I've been doing this for 20 years in the sports world, and I'd love to partner with you potentially." So we got on a call, and literally in an hour, I was sold. I'm like, I'm in. I want to do this. I saw it as a way to kind of bring memes to real life. And I didn't really know what I was getting into at that point, but it's become a passion for me to run a merch and apparel shop. And now I get to combine my passion of Bitcoin with making merch. I taught myself how to make designs. So most of the designs you see on the site, I've made. And yeah, I just have a lot of fun with it. It's a great way to connect with people, help orange pill other people, right? They see you wearing a shirt, sparks conversation. So it's just something I'm really excited about. And I can't wait for the bull market, because this has grown out of a bear market, and I can't wait to see the levels it could get to during a bull market.
Very good point. If you've done that good during this bear market, you might want to hold your hat for the or any one of those hats I saw for the bull market. I really don't buy Bitcoin T-shirts, and the reason is my drawers are so full of them. My wife makes me go through them and throw them away, the ones that I don't ever wear. And if to make it to my drawer, I must have thought it was decent to even make it to my drawer, because I have so many in there. But between gifts from family and friends, or conferences I go to where they're giving out shirts, like I always liked the Unchained shirt that says "Friends don't let friends sell Bitcoin" on the back. I thought that was a clever. So I have so many shirts. And you actually sent me and Kathy one. So I actually the other day saw the one we just saw there, the Halvening is coming, and I had to buy it. I couldn't resist. So that in all reality, that may be the first Bitcoin T-shirt I have ever paid for out of my pocket ever. So
wow,
yeah. So I may have bought another one. So I think I may have posted about it this morning that is one of the few, but it may be the only one in all reality. So I just couldn't resist. So I could see why you're doing well. Your designs are great, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your rear. It's a great shop if anyone's interested in gifts.
Yeah, no, and I'm very proud that I was able to finally get you to pull the trigger on a shirt. So now I have so many Bitcoin shirts because I run a merch company, and because I'm visible in the space, I order a lot of shirts for myself for like marketing purposes, right? I wear them to conferences, meetups, and my closet gets so overloaded with merch. So I actually give them away when I'm at Bitcoin meetups and conferences all the time. I throw them in a box. I wash them before usually, and I give them away. So if you're at the Miami Bitcoin meetup or anywhere in South Florida, there are a lot of free shirts and hats that end up getting passed around. So definitely
do the same exact thing at BitBlock Barbecue here in Dallas. I'll pick up shirts that people gave me at a conference, and I'll go, okay, this one's okay. I'm going to keep this one. This one's great. And these other ones are okay, and I've got like 50 of them. So I'll give those away. So I'm the same. But let me make a suggestion. I sure wish y'all could do some collared polos type shirts. 'Cause I would actually probably more apt to buy those than I would T-shirts.
So we had collared shirts that would have like little Bitcoin bees, like, on the lapel kind of area. Or not lapel, on the chest area.
Right.
And people just didn't buy them. We can put them back up. A special request by Mr. Gary himself. I'll get some back on the site. We'll talk, and we'll get something like custom made. and get it up there for you.
Yeah, because I would be more apt. I usually wear collared shirts when I go somewhere. I wear T-shirts around the house, but if I go anywhere, except maybe to the hardware store for an errand or something, I usually put on a collared shirt. Maybe that's just being an old boomer, type thing.
It could have been, we were just starting and we didn't have a large enough audience. And now we have more people that see our site. So maybe there will be more of a demand for something like that.
Yeah, last night I went to an event at Riot Mining Facilities. They're making the world's largest Bitcoin mining development in Corsicana. And so we went down there for a tour, about 20 of us were there. And I looked over there and there was someone wearing a polo with a Bitcoin B on it that they bought at BitBlock Boom. Because I had a sporting goods store, so I had like coaches' uniform shirts and stuff, and we would, instead of throwing them away, we would make a Bitcoin product out of it. Well, Neil, thanks for joining us on the show. I really do appreciate your time. You've given me more than enough of it, and I always enjoy seeing you at events. I assume I'll see you in December at Unconfiscatable, one of my top events. I think they've got to be up there. If you're a Bitcoiner, I recommend you check out unconfiscatable.com and see Tone Base's show conference is well worth going. He gets I always meet someone new as long as I've been in this space. I always meet someone new there too, that he has as a speaker. Just like you were saying, you met Tor at BitBlock Boom. So I always find I meet someone there. I've met Adam back there. I mean, I've met several people there that I have never seen anywhere else, and I'm sure they've been other places. I just haven't seen them. Anything you want to leave, last minute words you want to leave with anyone, or?
No, I just thank you for having me. Check out FOMO21.com for all your favorite Bitcoin merch and apparel. Check out Swan if you're interested in learning about Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin. And yeah, thanks for having me, Gary. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, more than welcome to have you on the show. We'll be right back in a few minutes after this word from our sponsor, but I do want to let everybody know, as I said, we don't try to sell you Bitcoin on this show. That's not our goal. Not selling anything, not selling anything at all, but I do want you to learn about Bitcoin, and I do hope you will do any friends you know that may be interested a favor and tell them about this show. We bring on great guests, we talk about Bitcoin, and that's all we talk about, because that's all I care about. This is the Bitcoin Boomer Show, but it's not just for boomers. It is for Bitcoiners and people who want to learn about Bitcoiner, and it's the Bitcoin Boomer Show because I'm a boomer and I like Bitcoin. So do not get this confused and think you can't tell this about this show to someone who's younger. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor, so please stay tuned. And welcome back to the show. I think we had a great show today. Great conversation with Neil Jacobs. What do you think, Stephanie? What did you think of Neil?
I think Neil was really cool and fun. I really enjoyed how the shirts that he made looked very modern. Like he had a Barbie reference shirt with the font, and then the Happening, or was it something else? It was Game of Thronesy. So that's always fun for me to see and where I'm sure other people have the same take too.
Really, it's just another example, Stephanie, of people in the Bitcoin world learning how to make money out of a whole new system, a whole new financial system. Learning how to, for instance, I'm sure Neil accepts Bitcoin or fiat money, but that's a whole new industry. Anything that you can think of of doing in the fiat world, you can move into the Bitcoin world. So, and that's a perfect example. Before we wrap up the show, I do want to remind people that I host the BitBlock Boom Conference. This year we're in Dallas, Texas. This is the longest running Bitcoin conference on the planet. This is our 7th year. So do go to bitblockboom.com, check out our conference. It's in April this year. right after the eclipse, total eclipse of the sun, trying to incorporate that somehow. So do check that out. Also want to make sure you know about my monthly meetup for Bitcoiners in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Go to meetup.com/bitblockboom. Normally in the summertime, we have it at a barbecue restaurant, and we have barbecue, great barbecue once a month. In the wintertime, we move to a car storage facility where there's tons of Lamborghinis and neat cars to look at. So do check out meetup.com/bitblockboom. Want to make sure you know about the book I helped write. I co-wrote this book with 7 of my friends. We spent a week in an Airbnb and wrote this book in a week. Bitcoin and the American Dream. Check out bitblockboom.com/books. bitblockboom.com/books. It's a great book. If you know someone that is trying to learn about Bitcoin or you want to educate about Bitcoin, this book, if I say so myself, is a great book to give them. It's about an hour and a half read, maybe 2 hours. You can read it on a flight, and it gives you a basic understanding of Bitcoin. Lots of information about Bitcoin. So do check that out. I want to thank BizTV for their work here today, letting us use their studio. And I want to make sure, like I said, once again, please tell your friends about the Bitcoin Boomer Show. This is Gary Leland saying goodbye, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Stack those sats.